Hey guys, Bill here with just a little bit of a disclaimer before we get into this episode of Geek Addicts. This episode coming up is a little bit different than our normal episode styling. This is actually one of a few scrapped pilot episodes that we had originally done in our first attempt at what was going to be the podcast that eventually became Geek Addicts. These were recorded way back in either early 2022 or very late 2021. I can't quite remember the exact date, but we had sat down and recorded a few episodes of what was originally going to be our first go at a podcast together. So the some of the topics and like stuff is very out of date compared to nowadays. Also, the audio was not the best. We really weren't sure what exactly we were doing, so just a little bit of a disclaimer there. It's a little rough around the edges, but we thought it'd be fun because we're getting close to almost a year doing Geek Addicts now, to showcase our original idea for the show. So with that, here's the first of a set of pilots that we recorded that we'll probably be getting around to throughout the rest of the year. Until then, guys, though, on to Geek Addicts. The following is a GNC podcast production. Welcome to Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast.
All right, so video games.
Hey, it's my forte now.
Yeah, right. Well, we've been hanging out for what? A couple years now, I think.
We've known each
Year
other
and a half.
for about 4 years, I want to say, but
Give or take. Well, you were working the night shift when I first started there.
Yeah, because
I didn't really know each other much.
I met you at that Christmas party where we went to the Japanese place, and then we went to the bar after, and we're all just shooting the shit for like another 2 hours.
Oh yeah, and then our HR person told my wife that she was my beneficiary, which is not very illegal thing to do.
No, it was cool.
Whatever, she already knew.
I kind of figured.
But
It was
yeah.
adorable.
So my number one pick for my top 3 video games, and just for the sake of knowing, all of these lists that we've done at this point, depending on whatever order we put these in, these are objective for the time. Like, these constantly get switched out depending on what we're in the mood for,
That's
what we're into.
I'll say my number one picks are all pretty definitive. It's 2 or 3
Me too.
that kind of
Yeah.
move around.
Me too. My number one picks are all times for sure. But my first one is Fable 2. So I started playing the first Fable. I want to say it was either late middle school or early high school. Actually, it must have been middle school because the second one came out in 2008, and I got that right when it came out.
Yeah, it was I was a PlayStation 2 guy back in the day,
Me too.
A Sony fanboy, as
Yeah.
you could say. So I didn't have an Xbox, and
There's Sony and Nintendo.
I remember they hyped the shit out of Fable.
Oh, yeah.
When it first came out.
I didn't even hear about it until after it already come out. My brother was the one. My brother Brian got me into it. And,
Well, I remember because it was Lionhead Studios' Peter Molyneux, and Peter Molyneux is a kind of controversial figure, I guess, in gaming to a degree. Mostly for his, it's not so much what he does, because he makes great games. Well, he did. I don't know what he does now because he's Peter Molyneux. But his biggest thing in gaming, his biggest issue, I guess you could say, was he has a really bad tendency of hyping a game and promising unrealistic goals and then failing to deliver.
Yeah, well,
Which is one thing that Fable 1 kind of suffered from to a degree.
Yeah, I definitely see that would be accurate.
I don't think Fable one I liked.
Well, I think the biggest thing with you wasn't like the game itself, but like the
Gameplay.
the setup.
Yeah, the way.
Like not even the gameplay, but like the way the menus worked and
Well, that's
all like the general like way it was built, kind of thing. But I really like the story of the first Fable.
Yeah.
And they had like a lot of different magic and stuff to work with, and that was the only one that was really strictly fantasy. because from 2 onward, it takes place way later, and there's like guns and there's like industrialized
Like
cities and stuff like
steampunk.
that. Yeah, and what's more steampunk in the later ones. But Fable 2 was the first one. I probably one of the first games that I really like was waiting for ahead of time, because I played the crap out of the first one. The second one really improved a lot on general gameplay.
Well, isn't the second one is considered the best by most fans, isn't it?
In my opinion, it certainly is. As far as playability and replayability and so on, because they fixed a lot of the clunkiness of the first one. The menu system was way more efficient.
Okay.
I mean, the story was fun. There wasn't really like a big final boss like you would expect in most video games, which was different. It was more about the journey itself.
That's what I've heard with the Fable series.
Yeah, which is fun. Well, I mean, the first one had a big boss. The third one did too, I believe.
Yeah, the third one had like that big
The shadow thing.
deal at the end. Yeah.
Which we'll talk about more when we get to your stuff. Yeah, just in general, it fixed a lot of the clunkiness of the first one, made it a lot smoother, opened the world up a lot more, which I liked a lot. It was just I've gone back and played that game so many times. It's just a solid, because it's one of those games where like you have the room to stretch out and explore, but it's not so big that it's overwhelming, like Red Dead or Skyrim or other games of that nature.
Any open world game
Yeah.
at this point.
Anything made by Bethesda.
Yeah. Although it's going to be 3 times less glitchy.
Yeah, exactly. But
isn't the remake considered the best way to play the original now?
oh yeah, for sure. Even though it's honestly, it came out after Fable 3, and it still looks shittier than 2. It's very blocky.
Yeah.
And that kind of fixed some of the menu stuff, but I mean, that was the one that Cindy tried playing. And even that was
What?
the Fable 1. You played the anniversary version.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't.
Not my thing.
But I had a lot of fun with it in general. But yeah, Fable 2 is the first one for me. Second one, and this is a big one because I've been playing this one. Actually, my first game for Game Boy Advance was the first in this series, and that's Legacy of Goku. Obviously, from the anime one that we talked about, I'm a very, very big on Dragon Ball. And the Legacy of Goku game, it was an action RPG for the Game Boy Advance. There was 3 games. There's Legacy of Goku 1 and 2, and then there was Boo's Fury, which, that was weird. I don't know why they did that, but... The first one was very clunky, but I played it... I was so into Dragon Ball when I was a kid that I played the crap out of it anyway, and it got to a point where I, like, mastered the combat system. I can beat that game in under 2 hours.
Yeah, it's really short.
That's my favorite speedrun game. Is
I
one...
love the graphics on that game, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the sprites,
They're not bad.
what weirds me out about that those games were developed by a studio called like Webfoot Technologies.
Yeah, Webfoot, yeah.
And they made some of they're only really they're still around technically, but they're only really known for Legacy of Goku.
Yeah.
And their only other things where they made Taiketsu, like one of the worst Dragon Ball fighters.
Yeah, that's bad.
And Dragon Ball GT Transformations, an incredibly mediocre beat 'em up.
Yeah, if you want to play a Dragon Ball beat 'em up, Advance Adventure's the way to go. For
Yeah.
sure. Advance Adventure's a really fun game.
Or maybe there might be one on no, even the Super. No, those were all fighting games. Yeah, Advanced Adventures probably.
Yeah,
That's the way to go.
yeah. But yeah, the first one was it went up to Frieza, went from Raditz to Frieza. It was one of those games where like you have to line up your punch perfectly. And
Yeah,
unless you over level the crap out of yourself, you'll get taken down by grunts super easy.
That game is like literally like the definition of jank.
Oh yeah.
Like it is so,
But
which sucks because it's like the best like part of the series too, in my opinion.
part of its jankiness though is its charm. Like I love, and the original soundtrack for it was fun.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. The second one was when they really made all the changes, because that was when they were like, okay, we can actually make money with this. Let's put some money into it.
Yeah. And actually competently develop it.
They made a lot of changes with that one, and that one's probably the most solid in the series, in my opinion.
Yeah, like
It's definitely the most balanced. I'll say that for sure.
in terms of gameplay and story and progression and
Yeah.
stuff.
The third one had this cool thing where you could kind of like allocate your stats however you wanted, which the other ones didn't. But in a way, that also was part of what made that game broken and super easy to cheese.
Yeah.
Because if you just put it all in strength, you're good to go. Like, you really don't have to do anything else.
The series was basically, in a lot of ways, it was the predecessor to Kakarot. In a lot of ways, just an action RPG.
Dude, you have no idea how long I was waiting for a game like Kakarot.
I know.
And they did a decent job with it. I just wish it could have been more.
I still to this day wish they would do a freaking OG Dragon Ball game.
Yeah.
No one wants to touch that, and the only games we've gotten are Advanced Adventure is great.
Solid.
There's Origins, which is like.
Which I played the first one, and it's
like,
all right. It's the touchscreen that kills me, though. If it wasn't a touchscreen game, I'd be okay with it.
It's like Phantom Hourglass, but Dragon Ball.
You ever play Dragon Power?
Oh, you mean the NES game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing's a hunk of shit.
I have that game.
I do too. I got it at Bowser's Basement for $2.
I bet.
But yeah, that game.
You have to use cheats in that game.
My favorite part is the Roshi scene where he's. It's basically the scene.
Give me lunch.
Well, in the Japanese version, it's panties. So.
Oh yeah.
Because the Bulma scene.
Well, they make it sandwich slices in the American version.
I think I saw a reviewer once was like, "Did I just witness a sandwich orgy?" It's like the goofiest thing in the. Dragon Ball games have a very hit or miss legacy.
Oh yeah.
There was also that weird one on the Wii that was like the Revenge of King Piccolo or whatever.
I heard good things about that one.
It's okay. I mean, it's for Dragon Ball standards. It's.
I still need to play Attack of the Saiyans.
Attack of the Saiyans is where it's at because that's a turn-based RPG.
Yeah.
And that one actually starts right at the end of OG Dragon Ball, so there's actually a little bit like
you could actually pick that one up after Advanced Adventure because Advanced Adventure ends with King Piccolo.
Yeah, in a sense, it kind of takes place like right at the end, but it adds some stuff like because you start out playing as Krillin and Yamcha and Tien, and they go each to like their own little mini adventure. Like Krillin goes back to his original school, and you fight a boss. Like Yamcha goes back to his like original like hideout, and you actually fight the carrot.
Yeah, Monster Carrot.
Carrot.
That's what all Yamcha could fight.
Yeah.
And then you eventually get to the actual tournament. Although the tournament part is a little bit is kind of disappointing because it literally glazes over like everything, like all the lead up to the Piccolo fight.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer.
Even though you start with the other characters that are in the tournament.
Yeah, you just cut right to Goku.
That's kind of lame.
Yeah, it is. But then we get to like the game proper.
Well, I mean, does it go through all of his fights or just Piccolo?
Just Piccolo.
That's kind of stupid.
Yeah, it's lame.
Whatever. I guess it's called Attack of the Saiyans. They gotta get to it.
Yeah. It's very much build up. Yeah. But that's a great game. But so what was your third game?
Witcher 3.
Witcher 3.
Witcher 3 is a solid RPG. It's honestly, if we had this podcast like 6 years ago, Skyrim would be in that spot, but Witcher 3 overtook that for me because it's just such
that's CD Projekt Red, right?
Yes, and I actually have since playing the game. I've read the books, and that was it. Definitely provides a lot of.
So as someone who doesn't, I haven't played it yet. I haven't really got around to it.
Oh, you haven't?
No, well, I'm more.
It's a long game.
I'm more of a JRPG fan. But,
that's fair. But Witcher does have like it's a very smooth.
Was Witcher 3
very smooth mechanics?
Super hyped, or was it just kind of came out?
I honestly don't know. Because that was another one that I don't really like go super into like hype for new games. If a game comes out and I hear tons of good things about it, then I'll give it a try.
Well, because I just when I think CD Projekt Red right now, I can't help but think about Cyberpunk.
Yeah, well,
the definition of overhype.
Oh well, they definitely overhyped that one. But
see, because I haven't played that, but I heard when it was coming out all this stuff. And the concept of it sounds amazing to me.
So the game's not bad. It's just
unfinished.
They acted like it was going to be this revolutionary thing, and it just ended up being a cheap.
Pushed it out before they actually like really got it to that hype point.
The PC version was better than the problem was the PS4 and Xbox One were not ready to run that game. Like it was not optimized at all.
Oh.
Well, they were probably made it with the new systems in mind.
They
That's probably one of the big reasons.
It was a victim of like sheer overhyping. Like when I saw just how many people were already like claiming it was going to be the greatest game ever made, I was like, it's gonna bomb. It's going to fail to meet that so hard.
None of them knocked on wood. That's what happened.
Yeah. But Witcher 3,
Witcher's highly acclaimed.
Yeah, I never played the second. Well, I started the second one. I didn't get very far because it was the gameplay is very different from the third one.
That's what I've heard. Like the third one is like the definitive game that they made.
Yeah,
essentially
for sure.
I'm gonna go after you because then I'm gonna smoke a butt and lay on the couch where I can listen. But
after me or after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not to be pushy.
All right, whatever.
Sorry, mine are pretty long.
I'm a
so.
little stoned and.
But yeah, Witcher 3, like the story is very engaging, and it's one of those games where you could literally, if you just want to hang out and just like enjoy like a quick one-shot story, you just do one of the side quests because each side quest is its own like immersive story.
It is deep. Okay,
And,
tell
like,
the story
what
of, like,
what
my
happens?
bad luck fucking run with that
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
So, like, I have this curse that every time I'm into a game or I beat a game and I'm just back, like, at this point, like with Witcher, I was down to the DLC.
Mm-hmm.
Our system crashed. Whatever it was that we were playing on,
Yeah,
it
something happened with
fucked
that
up.
PlayStation.
And, like, every single time, so Witcher, I got through all of it. All those little tiny, which there are so many.
There's
It's
so
such
many
a big
side
world.
quests.
It's such a big story.
It
Like,
could take you a long time
so
to get
many
through the whole
side.
game.
I got through all of that shit. And it was just down DLC, pretty much.
Mm.
And it fucked up, and I haven't,
On the
I
last,
haven't played it yet.
DLC too, you had just started it.
Yeah, I
The
haven't
Blood and
played
Wine
it.
one.
I haven't played it since because I'm still butthurt about that 2 years ago.
Yeah. Longer than that.
Yeah, it
We were
was
in the
bad.
apartment
It was
still, I
bad.
think.
It was bad.
But yeah, that's a really fun game. Anyone who hasn't played it, I highly recommend it, especially if you like open world games. And
I love that game. It was just the fact that I put all that time and effort into it. And now it's like I have to do that again.
you know what I really like about Witcher is, like, with the most of the quests and stuff, even if you're out leveled, like, by a wide margin, like, even if they have you out leveled by like 20 levels, if you are determined enough and you utilize the fuck out of that combat roll, you can beat it. It's just gonna take some time.
Oh, it's gonna take forever.
But, like,
It's like, but you can.
and that's what I'd always do, because the quest to get
remember
the master blacksmith to make, like, the really good equipment, that's like a higher level quest. That's like, you know, you have to get, like, a good ways into the main story before you get to a level where you could take it and not have too much trouble with it. But I always do that almost immediately, so I can get, like, the highest level equipment and all that other stuff. But there's this one part where you have to fight a whole bunch of dwarves, and they're all way higher level than you, so you literally can't get hit twice. And you have a spell that will make, like, a little force field thing, so you get, like, one free hit. They can get one hit on you. Mm-hmm. So I would just be using that over and over, and I'd roll in, I'd, you know, kind of, like, knock them back for a second, I'd get a couple hits, and I'd have to roll away before they could hit me.
Yep.
And I would do that over and over and over until I could get it.
I remember when I first started playing it, I was like very low level. And I just decided to, like, you know, take a break and start adventuring around and seeing what the world was like.
Part of, like, the huge fun with that game.
Yeah, but I'm riding my horse, and I'm riding Roach. I'm going up, and I'm adventuring the mountains, and then there's a fucking giant, and I just whoop, and, like, right back the way I came. Like,
It's crazy.
You just nope.
yeah, exactly. Like,
Oh, do you remember Trollolo?
oh, sweetie pie.
The rock troll?
Yeah,
Trollolo?
the best.
He worked for the soldiers, and, like, something happened. He accidentally killed them all, but
Trollolo.
he was still working for them even after he killed them all by accident.
So sweet. I loved him.
It was fun. All right, so yours, Cindy?
Oh, I forgot what I wrote. It's a lot. But yeah, okay, so I'd say Fable 3 would be my first favorite. Mostly because of the connection I have with it, because not to get into my sad fucking life, but I was in a really bad relationship at one point. And at night while he was working, I would play Fable 3 to, like, zone out and just go into my own world. And this was my relationship before my husband. And that was, like, my solace, like, going into that Fable 3 world. And it was great. Like, nothing will compare to that because of how good and safe and happy I felt in that world.
I love the story for Fable 3.
And that too, yeah, like the story, that's what I mean. Like, I could pop into it like I could pop into a book. And it was just...
And that, honestly, is a more direct continuation to what I said with Fable 2, because in Fable 3, you're literally playing as the child of the character from Fable 2.
Yeah. But it was just so good at the time. Like, the way that the story captivated... Like, at this time in my life, I was newly recovering again, and I was smoking a bunch of pot. I was in a really bad abusive relationship, and the way, like, nothing could get me out of that world that I was really living my reality. Nothing could get me past that, and I was just totally fucked. And Fable 3 came along, and it was like, wow, like, that was the best 8 hours at night. My ex would come home, and my eyes would be totally red, like, just fucked.
Oh, yeah.
But it was, and I love the way it played. I love the story. I love just the smoothness of it. Like, I know it was kind of glitchy too, but like,
I've heard there's a big
was
like
good.
split in the fan base. Like a lot of people love 2, and then a lot of people love 3, and it's kind of like there's like a weird like kind of like split there.
It depends on
They
what type of
changed a lot
games
with
you like,
3.
I think. Because like for me, I like games like 3. Like I like games like that and Witcher and Assassin's Creed, things like that. But the one like 2 I liked, but it was just more, you couldn't get into the stories. I had to constantly remember like, oh, this menu is this, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and Fable was very easy flowing for me.
Gotcha.
Fable 3.
So I think Fable 3.
Yeah.
So I think that's why some people are into that. It's like depending on what kind of
Okay.
style, like, at least from my point of view.
Yeah.
My second game, always, forever, again, nostalgic from childhood, would be Crash.
I think that applies
That's-
for all 3 of us.
Yeah.
In that
Yeah, I think
Crash.
everybody feels that.
Crash 3 Warped. That was my childhood.
Yeah.
I played the crap out of 3. I played a lot of first one too, but actually Crash 3 and Spyro 3 I played a lot of.
See, I never played Spyro back in the day. Like I missed out on Spyro because games were expensive.
Which is honestly that's very sad.
Well,
because Spyro is such a good game.
I don't think I really had Spyro.
I was
as a
buying
kid.
RPGs.
That's fair. Well, honestly, I think Spyro was way more RPG-ish than Crash was.
Well, Crash was a hallway game. Spyro was more Mario 64-ish.
That's fair.
I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Like open-ended.
Yeah.
Now a Crash 3, that's nostalgia right there.
Yeah.
It's like 1 has aged terribly, the first one, but 2 and 3, I can go either way.
The remakes are good.
The remakes are the remake is the definitive way to play 1
Yeah.
because it fixes all the problems that 1 has.
Yeah. We
See,
actually
my
we need to
issue-
pick that one back up because we got pretty close to the end of the first one.
We
We got further
did.
than last time.
But it's just so hard because it's like, Crash is one of those ones that it's so happy and nostalgic and fun, but I will fucking rage and want to throw shit out the window.
Crash
You
1
tried to throw my PlayStation out
I
the
did.
window when
I
I
was
played
a
the
little
first
angry
time.
that day.
Crash 1 is a very frustrating game,
Oh yeah.
especially
That's one of the top tier
So
like
bad.
rage quit games.
and there's no reason to 100% it because all the 100%ing does is get you an alternate ending that isn't even as good as the actual ending.
I've never even gotten to the ending.
All you get for getting all the gems is you get this alternate ending where you skip the final boss and Crash and Tana fly off into the distance on a dragon.
Ridiculous.
It's like, okay,
Is the dragon Spyro?
no, that was before Spyro.
Ah, fair.
Because Spyro 1 came out when Crash 3 was coming out.
Oh really? No, I didn't realize.
That's
it
why
was
Spyro was a demo. for
I always
Crash 3.
associate the two with each other, so I
Well,
never.
because Insomniac Games and Naughty Dog are just like forever like entwined.
Oh okay.
But
Yeah.
I love Crash 3 too because when you start the game, it's always like Crash Bandicoot Warped. And
Yeah.
like ridiculous.
That will always stick out in my mind, for sure.
It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
But my third,
It's like the
My-
evil Oogie Boogie.
how did you say
Whatever
it
it is.
earlier?
What?
I guess, like, I was trying to remember your words, but they're gone.
Well, we're drinking, so.
Yeah. So, my third favorite, like, interchanges is, I guess, how I'd say it. Like,
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
It's
you're
always different
your
depending
opinions
on-
Depends on
always
the
change
time.
depending
Yeah,
on-
so right now, it'd be Assassin's Creed. I've only played a few of them.
You played what? 2
Origins.
and the one you're playing now, Black Flag,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Black Flag is the greatest pirate game ever made.
It's so fun. I've always wanted to be a pirate ever since I was little, so it's really fun.
Like it's funny how many people like don't like Assassin's Creed, but they love that game because it's like just a great pirate game.
Yeah, see, I like it because, like, one of my games that got me into gaming that I've always liked, like, when I was a little bit older, was Prince of Persia.
I love Prince
So
of
it's
Persia.
kind of like the same type of, like,
They're remaking
running
that.
and stuff like
They're
that.
actually
Like,
remaking Sands of Time.
no, they're not. Okay,
They
we're getting
supposedly
that.
are at some point.
I love that. Oh my
Is
god.
it gonna be for the Switch?
Probably.
That'd be
I don't see
cool.
why it wouldn't at this point.
I mean, they've
Yeah.
ported so much over at this point. Like,
Yeah, I
this-
think Switch is
I'd
kind
have
of
to,
taken
I'd have
over.
to look. I'm surprised they haven't ported those games just to Switch in general.
there's a lot of games that I'm surprised they haven't ported yet.
Yeah, but I like Assassin's Creed.
You know what?
It's fun.
I'm gonna say this right now. If they ever did a Fable collection, like the Fable trilogy, and just ported it over as is over to the Switch would forever be my favorite console.
I just wonder if Microsoft would be that like.
I don't think they'd let it go.
Yeah, because Microsoft and Nintendo are chummy now, but I'm not sure they're that chummy.
Yeah, it's just disappointing because there's some games that I really would like.
They're starting to let Nintendo have some rare stuff again, so
I mean, Fable's kind of like I feel like a much more focused fan base.
Yeah, but like, why the fuck?
It's not
is
like
Fable?
Halo.
Fable's
Halo
not.
was like Microsoft's baby for a long time.
Fable's not on Switch, is it?
No.
It needs to be.
It's an Xbox Microsoft property.
Yeah, but they need to deal with that because that needs to be on Switch because all
I would
the
love to
fucking
play that game on the go.
Xboxes, that's the thing, is again, those Xboxes like to die. Okay?
Red Ring of Death.
Yeah. And they like to lose all your progress and all your games. So if they could put Fable on Switch so I could feel a little bit better and safer about it.
Yeah.
And have a wonderful time.
That would be nice. It's one of those things where exclusivity has to be a thing, especially when Microsoft doesn't have like any exclusives. Period.
Well, they're assholes. It's all about money.
Well, I mean, Microsoft has...
Nintendo are like the king of assholes.
Microsoft has Halo and it has Fable and like maybe a couple other things.
Gears,
but
maybe.
Gears of War.
Yeah. And
I never really got into that one.
I would just really
fine.
love it. Like, if Fable came out, like, I probably would do like I did before where I don't come out of the video game because I'm playing it so much.
Hunting gargoyles.
It's like when I play Assassin's Creed.
Oh no, I'm sorry, gnomes.
Yeah.
That's the third one.
When I'm playing Assassin's Creed, Matt has to remind me, like, Cindy, you have to wake up in the morning. Like,
yeah.
Like, I usually...
We have a 4-month-old baby.
I have to use...
You need to get sleep.
Yes, like, the baby's going to wake up at 6. Like, I have to use...
She's not going to sleep in.
Time management. Like, tonight would be a good night to play because...
The baby's up.
The baby is gone and Xander is with his dad, so, like, I could play tonight because I could stay up all night and sleep in tomorrow. Because I don't realize it's like how other people played Skyrim.
Yeah.
Other people played Skyrim. Like, you don't realize how long you're playing it for, and then next morning it's like the sun's coming up and the roosters.
My favorite thing was...
Oh, yeah.
My favorite thing with Skyrim is, like, the amount of people where it's like, oh, how's the plot? There's a plot.
Yeah, nobody even bothered.
I
with
could
the
never
main
play
storyline.
Skyrim. Like, I just couldn't play it. I tried, but I could watch people play it.
Yeah, it
and
was
get
something
into
about
it.
the mechanics, the battle combat style and stuff.
It was just, it was
Didn't
difficult
work
for
with you.
me.
I just never was into that style of game.
I loved watching other people play it. Like, wonderful.
Yeah, I never really got into Fallout, but Skyrim, I was crazy about.
Oh, Fallout! I loved watching my brother John, plays Fallout, especially with the music and shit. Like, it was great. But
That's another thing I love
play
about
it.
the Fable games is the music. I love the music in Fable. It just those soundtracks, all three of them are so nostalgic to me.
Well,
Like,
going back to Witcher, we actually bought the Witcher soundtrack. My son used to fall asleep to it when we first started dating.
Yeah, he did.
I loved the music in that because I'm really into that, like shanties and Celtic music and
Bard Tavern music.
all that type of stuff. I'm really into that.
I hate that argument where people are always like, are video games actually art? And I'm like, yeah, they are.
Oh yeah,
there's just
for sure.
Video games are multi-layered art because there's
Absolutely
the art of the storytelling, the art of the actual graphic presentation, the music.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just everything. Like,
And then, like, to think about how they make up all these side stuff. Like, you have your story, that's one thing. But all the side shit they put into it, too. Like, you have to be artistic to be able to make a linear story with all this side shit that intertwines in some way or another. Like,
and I also hate the whole argument of video game music doesn't count as real music. No, that's real music.
I listen to video game music all the time, dude.
I would rather, these days, at this point, if I'm not listening to old school, like, rock or whatever, like, I would rather listen to, like, video game shit.
Dude, I rock out to video game music and anime music all the time.
Oh, well, it's funny, at work, while I was doing inspection, I had my iPod, and I was listening to the freaking Final Fantasy IV soundtrack. So,
oh, were you?
Yeah, just jamming out over there.
The only one that I'm really familiar with at this point is 7. 7's the only one I've played to completion. I'm about 12 hours into 8.
8 has the best soundtrack in the series.
I like it. That being said, I've also heard a lot more like remixed versions of 7.
See, you gotta get, when you get to farther into 8, like, you'll start hearing, there's like some bangers in 8.
Right.
Some bangers.
Banger.
Banger.
Banger main.
It's not banger.
Or as the kids like to say, some bops.
Bops?
Yeah, that's another.
Kids bops?
Kids.
Kids don't even know what Kids Bop is these days.
I know, that's so
right?
weird. Alright, so I'm gonna go
like
for a
cramp
cigarette, and you guys can keep talking. It's Bill's turn.
Yep.
And then I'm probably gonna lay on the couch and either pass out because I'm drinking or play a video game.
You might as well. I mean, you got the time. Play some Assassin's Creed. You could keep going a Stick of Truth.
Listen,
Stick of Truth, another great game.
Stick of Truth is like, I'm pissed off about this part I'm in.
What part do you want? Oh,
I'm
right,
in
you're on Canada.
Canada.
You're in the Dire Bear.
Oh, the Canada part.
But I'm on the
Dire
Dire Bear
where it's
part,
an
and
8-bit game for no reason.
Yeah, I
what
love
the
it.
fuck, dude? I'm sorry, but like, I'm in this cave and I have to kill these few things, but like, it's 5 against 2, and they're so overpowering. Like, I've tried like a million times
It's been
and
a
I
while.
can't do it.
I haven't played Stick of Truth in a long time.
I couldn't get past the abortion part either.
I did that part for you.
Oh,
That was
out
so
of
weird.
out of context.
Oh,
That sounds really
yeah.
weird, but
It's South Park.
South Park.
It's
get
South
it.
Park.
I
If
mean-
you know South Park, you know what's up.
If you know what South Park is,
It could be anything.
Yeah.
yeah,
And what's his name? It's Randy.
Randy. Yeah, Randy.
So if
Randy
you know,
Dash.
you know.
Yeah. All right. So now I guess getting into my final 3. So I'm a mega RPG fan for people who listen to my podcast or just follow me on Instagram. And you know, I've said it a lot in the past, but my favorite game of all time is Persona 4 Golden. And so the Persona series in recent times has exploded in popularity. Like back in the day, it was very underground, and 4 was kind of like the first one that really started to get a notice. Because I knew about 4 because 4 was all over like internet culture, like YouTube videos. Like you'd always see like 4 references, but I never knew what Persona 4 was. So I went to GameStop back when GameStop still carried PS2 games regularly, and I saw Persona 4 like up on the PS2 wall, and it was like $40, I think, because some PS2 games hold their value. Actually, nowadays all games hold their value, but so I remember this is like just when I graduated from high school, and I was just getting having financials, so I saw it there, and I was like, when I have the money, I'm going to buy that. Well, that was right around the point where Persona 4 Golden, the Vita port, comes out. So I go to GameStop, and I literally I'm like, oh, Persona 4 Golden, I can get that one. But then I'm like, but I also want the original because it's there.
Yeah.
So I buy them both. And the guy at the GameStop on the thing, he's literally like, you know, this is the same game, right? I'm like, yes. He's like, well, you don't have to buy both. It's the same game. I'm like, I'd like both, please. And I'm like sitting like, why is the GameStop employee fighting me over this?
Why does he not want my money?
I know. I think he wanted the game himself personally, but
Well,
but
I've never played it. I've heard a lot about it, especially from you. I do plan on playing it at some point. Has there been any news about this possible Switch port?
it basically that rumor came around, and that's been it.
Really? I'm hoping it actually happens because I would like an excuse to play it.
It's worth playing. It's like
You have the chip for the Vita version, right? Do you have the chip or do you have it downloaded?
I have the chip. It's like eternally in my Vita because I'm
All right. Well, if the Switch rumors end up being groundless, then I might have to borrow that from you at some point.
maybe. I mean,
I still have a bunch of Final Fantasy and Dragon
Yeah.
Quest to get through before I get to it. But
it's not a super graphically intensive game. It's also on Steam.
I don't mess around with.
Okay.
I'm not technical. I'm even just doing this podcast is
Yeah.
pushing my technological know-how to its limits. So
We'll have to see because who knows? It might get announced. I don't get why Atlas is weird about the Switch like that.
I don't know.
But so the game itself it's a turn-based role-playing game. And the whole gimmick is it combines turn-based role-playing with visual novel like life simulation. So the game is kind of split into two halves. There's the life sim parts where you play as the protagonist in a small town. He's moved there from the city because his parents are working overseas, so he's living in this small town at the time. And you're basically going to school and being a typical high school student at the time. As you're going through the game, suddenly murders start happening, and it's a murder mystery all of a sudden.
Huh.
And then you get... Personas are weird, by the way. So then all of a sudden you get sucked into the TV.
Okay.
And then this is where you discover your personas, and the personas are like incarnations of they're basically like your characters, like wants and desires, or like true like inner self, like personified. And when you reject yourself, your persona becomes a shadow, which is like an evil thing, and it basically the shadow will try to kill you, and then that's how you die in the TV world because that's how the murders are happening.
Okay.
Basically, people are getting thrown into the TVs, and then they're facing their shadows, and their shadows kill them in the TV world, and then they die in the real world.
Okay.
It makes sense.
I'll have to just play it honestly because
We got to watch the anime at some point because the anime is great.
that's fair. Yeah.
But so you start that, and basically as the game progresses, you start gaining more and more party members because all the party members are obviously people that were thrown into the TV.
Yeah.
And once you start saving them, you go in and do the thing, and then obviously each dungeon ends with the final boss is one of the party members, and it's them against their shadow because the whole plot of the game is it's like they're kind of repressing their inner inner selves, like who they are, because the shadows are like exaggerations of like their inner selves that they're suppressing. Like one of the characters he is like a not really goth, he's more of a punk kind of character, but he's secretly like he's into like knitting and like homemaking stuff.
Okay.
He's like a softie. So his inner
So he's Kuwabara.
In a sense, but his inner his shadow in the game is like super camp, like to the max.
Yeah.
To the implication where it confuses him thinking, because at one point another party member shows up early and it's a spoil. Well, it's a over 10-year-old. Well, actually, it's almost like it's like over 10-year-old game at this point. One of the characters is at first you think it's a boy, but it turns out to actually be a girl.
Okay.
Because of her inner thing.
Reverse Haku.
In a sense, is explained. He develops an attraction to them, but at the time he thinks they're a male, so he's questioning his sexuality at the time. And his persona, his shadow is like a personification, like super like about as camp to the max as an exaggeration to it gets.
Okay.
But then we later discover that character is actually a girl.
Huh.
And he's not he was attracted to that character in general. It's one of those like things where like every character is like the way they're written makes sense. Like they're just exaggerated personifications of their like what they're trying to repress from the inside.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense when you play the game, because like one of the characters is like the heiress to like a traditional Japanese inn, and she feels shackled that she's going to be forever stuck at that inn, like she's never going to break out and become her own person.
I feel that.
But then like right, but then as you go through her thing, she finds out that she doesn't actually hate the inn. She just is afraid of being stuck, and then
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you play the game, because then each of these characters also has a social link, which is part of the life sim part of the game. And during the life sim sections where you're not in the dungeons, you can interact with characters to unlock more of their social link, which is where all their character development is, and that's where you learn more about them. And then by completing their social links, you unlock their second form personas, but you also uncover more of their backstories, and they get a proper resolution at that point. And the whole game is about, because the game has like a day system where there's only a limited amount of days before the end of the game.
Yeah.
And you have to manage your time between the dungeons and the social.
So you have a time limit?
It's not as bad as it sounds. Three was a lot worse. Like 3, you needed a strict schedule if you were going to complete it.
Huh.
But and then the game also offers New Game Plus, where you keep all your
that's kind of cool
stuff for your second playthrough.
I think Witcher 3 had a New Game Plus system too, which is pretty cool.
But it goes on that, and the reason I love the game is it's basically like you're playing an anime, because it's super anime styled.
Oh yeah.
The entire soundtrack is nothing but J-pop.
Really?
And like Japanese like rock, like anime music basically.
Huh.
Like it's amazing. Soji Meguro, or Meguro, however you say his name, is like one of my favorite composers of all time. Like he puts some genuine like bops into his like music.
It's not a bad thing. If it sounds like I'm walking away, it's because I walked a few feet away so I could make a drink, so don't worry about it.
But yeah, Persona 4 it's one of those games where you either you like it or you hate it. It's also one of those games that's like you need to like dedicate a large portion of your time to, because it's a 100-hour plus game.
Jeez.
But once you get in, you can't stop.
So, I mean, at least shares it that much with Witcher 3.
But I mean, it's my favorite game of all time. I do a yearly playthrough of it.
That's fair.
I'm like currently in it. Actually, my current playthrough, I finally got the main character, you get it? He's you.
Oh.
But
all right.
He has an alternate persona, but it is like a side quest to get in itself, and I finally did it on this most recent playthrough.
Huh.
It's super like engaging, and like doing the social links. You unlock more story, but also it helps you in battle during the dungeons, and it's just a great game overall. Like I've done 2 podcasts talking about Persona.
Yeah.
In the past.
We're still talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He loves Persona. I don't know what to tell you.
I guess so.
favorite game of all time. And even though I objectively say 5 is a better game in terms of technically, in terms of gameplay, 4 hits differently. It is the happiest murder mystery game you'll ever play.
Huh. All right.
It makes sense in context.
Yeah. I'll just have to take your word for it until I get to it.
Yeah. Now that's my definitive favorite game of all time. Everything else kind of fluctuates, but my second favorite game, which I've kind of settled on, is a game called Tales of the Abyss. And
really what?
Tales of the Abyss.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. It's It's part of a series called the Tales of series. Like every entry is like Tales of like blank, some weird word. But Abyss was the one that I played back in the day because the one that most people know is like Symphonia because that was like the big one on GameCube. But I didn't have a GameCube back in the day. I had a PlayStation 2. So I went with what the PlayStation 2 had, and I had two choices. There was either Tales of Legendia or Tales of the Abyss. And I had a 50-50 shot, and I went with Abyss because I thought the cover looked more interesting. Turns out Legendia is like the black sheep of the franchise. So I dodged a bullet there. Not that Legendia is a bad game. The Tales series is very love it or hate it. They're like they're super anime. Like they look anime, like play anime. They're like action RPG, traditional RPG hybrids.
All right.
And because you walk around like a regular RPG, like you run into battles on the screen, and then you transition into like battles. But the battles are like action based. Like they're like hack and slash. You control the character in the field with like swords or like magic.
Yeah.
But what's cool is they're multiplayer.
Huh.
Like battles, you can have a friend with you, and one person controls one character, the other controls another. Up to 4 players for 4 party members.
Really? What did this come out for?
It was on PS2. It's also on the 3DS.
Oh, okay.
There's Tales games still coming out to this day. Like one just came out on the PS5 and Xbox One. I want to say called Tales of Arise.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're like cool games, but they're super like cliche at times. Like so many anime cliches. But like you kind of go around the world, you follow. They're also very like big games, like super expansive. And one criticism with them is it's very easy to miss out on things if you're not paying attention because there's a lot of side quests that you get locked out of if you're not diligent, like paying attention. Like I'd recommend a guide when playing a Tales game. But Tales of the Abyss, it gets kind of a bad rap because its main character is kind of controversial.
Oh yeah.
Well, so spoiler warning for anyone who has never played or I mean it's a over 10-year-old game. It's 2006 when it came out.
Oh wow. Yeah.
But
that's almost 20 years.
The main character in the game is like starts out as like he's like a privileged noble and he's never left his plot line is he was kidnapped as a child, so he never leaves his mansion, and he's super sheltered, and because of that he's like a massive like dick. Like starting off the game, he's like just an arrogant jerk.
Yeah.
Kind of like Squall from 7, only he has voice.
You mean 8?
8, yes.
Yeah.
Only he's voiced, so it's a little worse. It's
I'm
actually
kind of hoping Squall
the fun
evolves a little bit more as it goes along because
he gets better. It's harder to. I don't want to spoil anything, but
yeah, I'm in the middle of playing it, so.
But the difference is the main character Luke. He is actually voiced. Ironically, he's voiced by Yuri Lowenthal or Sasuke.
Oh really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Who's also a character in Persona 4.
I feel like games like Persona and I forget the name of the game. There's this farming game that my buddy Matt plays, and there's a bunch of anime
Rune
people
Factory,
in
I
that.
think.
Is that what it is?
Well, maybe it's either
There's a bunch of anime people in that. Vic Mignogna and Bryce Papenbrook are all in it.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny. In Persona, the main character is voiced by Johnny Young Bosch, and then like the first party member you unlock is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal. In Tales of the Abyss, the main character is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, and then one of the first party members you run into is voiced by Johnny Young Bosch.
Huh.
It's just funny how it is. But the way the game starts out is the character's very unlikable from the beginning. And that's actually part of his character development, because you later find out he's actually, so this gets very anime, he's actually a replica, like clone, created of another character you encounter later on. And they were switched. So he's lived his whole life thinking he's this one character, when in reality he's actually a clone of said character who he's replaced. And he's actually only 7 years old, technically. But he was cloned at the age the other character was, so he's like physically like 19.
So that's actually kind of similar, Cindy, to the first season of Picard. So there's a storyline in that show that's very similar.
But the whole reason why he's so like the way he is because he's only ever known that because he was sheltered in the mansion, so he just lives a privileged life. And eventually a plot happens where he gets like teleported away from the lead female in the game, Tyr, who is like the main like mage healer of the game. And she's coming to the mansion to kill Luke's sword fighting instructor, who's actually her brother. It all gets explained later on. And then you kind of, from there, you're on a quest basically, because you're out in the middle of nowhere in the teleport, and you're on a quest to get back to the kingdom where Luke's from. And along the way, you meet a whole bunch of things, the plot unravels. Eventually, at one point, Luke destroys an entire freaking city and kills a whole bunch of people. Because, whoops, makes sense in context. Yeah. And then that begins his whole character development of basically like, because that's also where he finds out, hey, I'm a clone. And he goes through the cloning blues.
Huh. All right.
And then the whole rest of the game is him basically like he does the anime cutting the hair basically and starting over because he has super long hair to begin with.
Okay.
And then the rest of the game is him basically like basically redeeming himself.
Okay.
And it's like a coming of age story kind of.
That's cool.
And I don't want to get into it because it's a super tale story and it gets super weird as it goes on.
Yeah.
But super fun gameplay, like super solid story. The Tale series is very like it has a very dedicated following, but it's not for everybody in a way. It's kind of like you play one, and if you like it, then you'll like them all. Or sometimes you only like the one you've played. Like Tales of the Abyss, I can play at any time.
Yeah.
But I haven't been like Symphonia. Like is too. The problem with the Tale series is the newer you play, the harder it is to play the older ones because they just get better with each one.
Yeah.
And then getting into my final game. Now this one is probably the most obscure one, but it's Lunar 2 Eternal Blue, which was originally released on the Sega CD back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was... So unfortunately Lunar 2 is a very unfortunate game where it's only been released twice.
Yeah.
And both versions of it are extremely rare.
That's a bummer.
Because Lunar 2 came out at the tail end of the Sega CD's life and no one bought it. And then Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete, the PS1 remake, came out right at the end of the PlayStation 1's life and no one bought it.
Yeah.
But it's an old school, made by a company called Game Arts, and it's a very old school turn-based RPG.
Mm-hmm.
But it's notable for it was published over here and localized by a company called Working Designs. And Working Designs was like the OG localization studio for old RPGs back in the day.
Yeah.
And back in the day, like RPG localization wasn't super like standardized yet. So you had some very like jank, awful translations. Like the original Final Fantasy IV translation is horrendous.
Yeah.
Hell, even Final Fantasy VII's translation isn't particularly good.
Well, I never had any problem keeping up with it.
It's easy to follow, but if you actually like break it down, and you notice a lot of things are very poorly translated.
I mean, I'm guessing people who have played both the Japanese and the English versions wouldn't catch better.
Yeah,
people who speak both and read both.
There's some odd like grammar issues too here and there, and like misspellings and typos, and it's a little confusing how they like change a few things that don't make sense, and it's just a product of the time. Like they still hadn't figured it out by then.
Yeah.
But even eight's translation is not particularly good either.
Mm-hmm.
But Working Designs, their whole thing was like they did some things that weren't great too, like they'd make games deliberately harder at times or change like the way they were designed, because they did a lot of shoot 'em ups as well. But for Lunar 2 Working Designs and RPGs, they would take a lot of things, like they would do true localizations where they'd find like something in the game that like culturally over here doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And rather than doing a straight up translation, they'd change it up to make sense for an American audience.
Okay.
Like, so it would work. And they'd also, they also would do like, they did full voice acting at the time with actual decent voice actors, which wasn't super common back in the day.
Oh, no kidding.
So Lunar has like a ton of voice acting, and like Lunar also has like full anime cutscenes at times, even on the Sega CD, which was very impressive. The plot itself isn't the most, deep. I only say Lunar 2 right now because it's one of my favorite games, but it's also like one of those games that like some people prefer Lunar 1 Silver Star Story, which has been remade like 5 times. Lunar 2's only been remade once, and it's very hard to find. I just prefer the story. Like it's the typical like the main character protagonist meets the strange girl from nowhere and just decides, I'm in love with you now, I'm going to follow you to the end of the earth. And it kind of, you go from there, and there's a whole like evil, it's very traditional JRPG for the time. I'm not really great at explaining it because I haven't played it in a while, so I'd have to actually like break it down. But super anime, super great art, like cool story, like soundtrack. It's like an old 2D one too, so it's not that awkward phase of 3D where it was kind of like FF7's overworld models.
Yeah.
So it was still 2D and stuff, and it used like the battle system was cool because it was the sideways like turn-based style, and the characters kind of like moved around the board like a little strategically, kind of like
a tactics game,
kind of like tactical, but it was still turn-based combat.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into it because I don't want to butcher the plot right now, but just one of those like favorites, and like it's a shame that it's so freaking rare.
Yeah.
Because I mean, my first RPG going back, if we were going to really go to that, is FF8.
Yeah.
And the whole reason I got FF8...
Whoops.
Oh, I knocked the box over. The whole reason I picked FF8, I got FF8 as my first RPG was because I wanted 7, but as a 4-year-old, I screwed up the Roman numerals. So instead of 7, I got 8.
Yeah, well, that'll happen.
And 8 is, I love it, but it is objectively a flawed game in a lot of ways. And I defend it purely based off nostalgia.
I mean, I'm enjoying it so far.
It's not awful. It's just
I'm really looking forward to 9 though.
Yeah,
I feel like 9 is the one that really kind of focuses more on like the fantasy.
9 is like one of the. So I always say with Final Fantasies, like the way, like the perfect place to start with a Final Fantasy is either 4, 6, or 9.
Really?
Those are my definitive 3 because they 4 and 9 especially because they are the easiest ones to pick up.
That's fair.
There's no complex like systems, like the materia system or the junction system. Oh my god.
Yeah, well, the materia system was definitely easy to understand.
The materia system's simple enough.
It's just okay. Your magic is an item, and it can be interchanged between different people.
Yeah.
You know, and it can level up, so you can switch it from one person to another and keep it the same level.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, the problem I have with the materia system isn't so much the system itself. It's kind of it makes each character not feel unique in a sense.
I get that.
You can make any character. Basically, the characters are like blank canvases.
Yeah.
And you can basically just make them whatever you want with the materia.
True.
To a point.
I mean, they do have different styles in general.
They do, like, well, obviously, like in terms of
like you don't want to load a bunch of magic on Tifa because she's a brawler. Like her whole thing.
True,
is
but you can still like
strength and durability.
You can still teach her things because she is good at certain things.
Yeah, you can for sure.
And also she has certain armor that has different growth rates.
Mm-hmm.
But and then but what I say about 4 and 9 is they are so simple and easy to pick up because it's like every character has a defined class. There's no like class systems or different weird. Because the reason I say 6 is a great game too, but 6 has kind of a more basic version of what 7 has with the materia system.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as like all the characters have definitive classes in that game, but later on in the story you can give everybody magic and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like 9 and 4 where you have your mages, you have your brawlers, you have your sword fighters, you have your...
I like that. Honestly, that's kind of what I was expecting when I started playing 7. And I was really surprised by the way that they ended up doing it because it's very different than what I'm used to.
No, 9, you'll like 9. 9 is like the throwback to like the classics.
Cool.
And it's just great story, great games.
Honestly, one of the ones I know it's a different series altogether, but I'm really looking forward to playing Dragon Quest 3.
3's
because from what I hear, that's when like Dragon Quest really starts to take a turn and get more.
It does. 3's a bit more complicated because 3 introduces a job system.
Well, from what I understand, 3 introduces a lot of stuff.
It does. I prefer 4. Unfortunately, 4 is not available. Well, actually, I think 4 is.
I have it.
Oh yeah, you do technically.
Yeah. I cheated and I got one of those big like compilation DS games.
Yeah. Okay, so you can play 4 now.
So I actually have Dragon Quest 4, 5, and 6
and 9.
Yeah, 4, 5, 6, and 9. So I just need 7, 8, and 11.
Those are on 7 and 8 are on 3DS and 11's on Switch.
Yeah, so that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing.
We can't play 10 because we can't have nice things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah.
Plus, I don't have time for an MMO anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I've played enough RuneScape to know that.
I'm too busy chasing kids around.
Yeah, yeah, but that's my gaming. I guess top 3 for now. Like I said, those interchange. Like some days it's Pokemon Emerald, other days it's
Dude, I fucking put the shit out of Pokemon. 3rd gen gets a bad rep. Third and 4th both get a bad rep.
3rd gen gets a bad rep. 4th gen gets an even worse rep.
Yeah, I know, and don't even get me started with that. Everyone talks so much shit about 4th gen. I love 4th gen. 4th gen is probably one of my favorites.
Platinum is like the best way to play 4th gen.
That's the one. I have that one, and I have the remake of Pearl, which I barely start. I've only have one gym badge on it.
So I'm fine like getting some more in that, and I will admit I've grown on it, but I still hate the friggin' art.
I don't hate it. It definitely bothers me that the 3DS remake of 3rd gen looks better than the Switch version.
And it's also a reimagining. It's not like a straight. It's not identical.
It is, but it follows the story, and it actually takes elements from the manga. True. Believe it or not.
Well, what I mean by reimagining is it actually like changes things and puts like different like twists.
Yeah, like Mawile Town. Mm-hmm. They're vastly different in the remake. Oh, vastly.
Yeah. And there's like the whole side story with Steven at times.
Yeah.
But
I did like that. And Cynthia, hey Cindy.
Hi.
Is the champion in Gen 4, and she was. I remember her being one of the hardest fucking champions to beat.
She was unforgivable.
Yeah,
it's the name.
It is.
Well, not so much her.
It's her Garchomp.
Well, the Garchomp's bad, but also like Oh, you're about to win. Oh, no, full restore.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's a champion thing in general.
Yeah, but she was the worst when it came to those. Like,
Yeah.
it would be like, come on, just let me win. Full restore. No.
Yeah. Well.
Garchomp, why?
God, you remember the days of fucking playing the old Pokemon games, and you get all the way there, and like when you're a kid, you don't want to fight every single trainer, so you end up skipping a bunch of stuff.
Also, you never switch your Pokemon, so your starter is just way more powerful than everyone else.
Yeah. Honestly, I beat 3rd gen and 4th gen with like a maxed out. I did the fire starter for both, so I had firefighting on both.
I beat Leaf Green with just a Charizard.
It's possible, but
done.
it's unforgiving.
Yep. Classics. But
Right, well,
hey, we almost hit an hour with this one.
Yeah.
Probably
All
will
right.
be once you add the intro and outro.
Oh, certainly will. All right, I'm gonna cut it out now just to